Hi there. If you are watching this video, that tells me that you are about halfway through with Unit 0, learning all of the skills and practices that you are going to need to be successful throughout your 8th grade year of science. Now, if you remember from the beginning of this unit, you will recall that at the end of Unit 0, you will culminate everything that you learned by designing and carrying out your own final experiment. This is our Unit 0 mini experiment, which serves as practice for that final experimental design. So let's take a look at what this mini experimental design is going to involve. So it says Unit 0 mini experiment, bounce height, and we see here a tennis ball. So let's look at what this experiment is going to entail. The purpose of this experiment is to design and carry out an experiment using the scientific method and the skills learned in Unit 0. So the skills that you've learned up to this point and the ones that you'll be learning in the next couple of days will prepare you to complete everything that you need in this mini experiment. The standards that will be covered and assessed in this experiment are all NGSS science practices. We have designing and carrying out investigations using mathematics and computational thinking, analyzing and interpreting data, and engaging in argument from evidence. So now let's read the introduction of the experiment. In this mini experiment, you will design and carry out and experiment, collect data, and draw conclusions using the scientific method and the skills and practices learned so far in Unit 0. In the experiment, you must investigate if and how the height from which a ball is dropped affects how high it will bounce. The experiment you design and data you collect must answer the question, how does the height from which a ball is dropped affect the height of its bounce? So in this mini investigation, you will be designing your own experiment, carrying out the experiment that you design, collecting data from the experiment, and using that to draw a conclusion. And the question that you are seeking to answer in this experiment is how the height from which you drop a ball affects how high that ball will bounce. Your investigation will answer that question, and it must include all of the following bullet points. It must include the ball being dropped from a minimum, meaning at least 3 different heights. Now you may continue, extend, go further, and drop the ball from more than 3 heights, but you must drop it from a minimum of 3 different heights. It must also include 3 trials run at each height. So for each height, you must run the trial at least 3 times. It must also include a data table, which includes all of your data from all of your trials at each height. It must also include an average bounce height calculated for each drop height, meaning that for each height at which you drop the ball, once you collect all of that data, you will calculate an average of the height of the bounce. And finally, it must also include a graph of the average bounce height at each drop. That means that in your graph, you will only plot the averages that you calculated. Now, this is a simple experiment, so there are only a simple and small list of items available that I'm providing you. However, if you have things at home that you would like to add in that you deem necessary, that is fine as well. The materials that you were being provided is a single tennis ball and a ruler. The experimental question we've already read in the introduction, but as a reminder, it is again, how does the height from which a ball is dropped affect the height of its bounce? As this is an experimental design and assessing your ability to design and carry out investigations, your first job here is to design and write your own experimental procedure. Please make sure that you are referencing our video about how to write a full and complete scientific procedure. The next step is to make your hypothesis. You then have a very large space to include all necessary data and calculations. And finally, once all of your data is collected, you will be drawing a conclusion. Let's look at what that conclusion is going to involve. It says, use data from your experiment to write a CER, it means claim, evidence, reasoning, argument, answering the following question. How does the height from which a ball is dropped affect how high it bounces? So in our conclusion, As we know, we are answering the scientific question that we sought to answer in our experiment. Remember that this conclusion is a CER argument, meaning that I am looking for a claim, I'm looking for evidence from your investigation, and reasoning to explain how that evidence connects back to your claim. I'm so excited to see you guys practice and make use of all of the skills that you've learned so far in Unit 0 and really perform science. Have fun and do your best.